coming up, Universal has given an update on the closure of their parks, and well, that left us with not really a lot to talk about, so we're going to answer some questions that have been piling up in our YouTube comments. All that and a lot of fun. From our houses in Orlando, Florida, this is the Universal edition of the Diz Unplugged. This is episode 253 of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. The Diz Unplugged Universal Edition is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Universal vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. I'm your host, Craig Williams, and today I am joined alongside by my co-host, Ryno.
Hello.
Hi, Ryno. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. My back's bothering me a little bit, but other than that, I'm all right.
Well, I mean, when you're wearing the holster day in and day out, protecting the streets,
this is on hurting. Because of that, yeah.
Gotcha. You're not wearing a backpack for those watching. You're straightening your back.
I feel like I'm in the park, you know? Hey.
Wow, that's a good feeling to be in at home. But okay, well, how are you doing on self-isolation? Going on 2 weeks of self-isolation. You lost your mind yet?
I'm actually all right. Tomorrow marks my 14 days of not interacting with another human being, except for obviously Eli. But then there's one guy that I talk to that lives in my neighborhood who when he walks his dog, but we stay really far apart. So it's not like I'm like walking with him or whatever, but it's just a hello and talk. And then, but I guess I'm fine. I feel like I should be doing more home-based things than I am. I mean, working, I'm always sitting at this computer and this desk I set up in my loft, but I'm like, I haven't like organized or cleaned so I have a whole list of things I have not even gotten into yet.
And I bet part of that hasn't been watching Universal movies.
I have been watching some movies. It wasn't Universal. I guess technically it's a Disney movie again. Now I watched the Power Ranger movie because they did the official account did a watch party the other night, and no, I don't know. I've just been watching random movies, so I'm not sure if one of them was Universal. I don't think so. I don't think I've cracked into that yet, but I do have some ready to go. This stack on this shelf right here, those are all like purchased but haven't been watched yet.
Okay. You got to get on that Universal love right now. You got to. Once we get back over to the Walt Disney World show and all that other stuff, then you can talk about Disney. But right now, we're going to keep it Universal, friendly, and happy. So not really a lot of banter to talk about in terms of Universal right now, because again, the parks are still currently closed, hence why we are doing these shows remotely from our homes. So there hasn't been any Universal really in our lives for a little bit now, besides just the thinking and longing and hoping to one day be back in those parks and City Walk. I mean, pretty much City Walk. Pretty much I'm really like craving all the food that I can't have right now. I'll never take Who Hash for granted ever again.
I know, I was just looking at you can't see it in the shot if you're watching, but my Who Hash can is like on the top shelf here, and I was like, I've got some cauliflower tots. I could put it in there and make a faux Universal day for myself. But I am actually really, well, I'm craving, what do you think is going to be the first place you eat at Universal when it reopens? Do you have a place where you're like, I've had this itch to eat there?
That's a question. Honestly, I would say it would probably, if I had to really justify like one item, I would probably say that greasy, disgusting mess of a burger that I had at Twosome the last time. Because that's the one thing that I'm really missing with all of this, is that like I don't bake my own bread. I've I'm not good at baking bread. I've tried many times in the past. I know it's one of those simple things that anyone should be able to do. I just cannot. I am
I don't think it's that
terrible.
simple.
It's the patience of it, the using the yeast and mixing it all together and then letting it sit and rest long enough and rise to the right level. Like I'm not good at baking in general. Like I can bake a casserole, and that's like
I do love casseroles.
I may cook. I'm not a baker, so like stuff like bread is really I have to buy bread that's already made, and like all the buns got wiped out at all of the stores really quickly, but I was able to get bread that I like. So like I've been having a lot of patty melts and stuff like that that's just with regular bread. So like I am craving being able to have like just a really greasy, disgusting cheeseburger like on a good brioche bun and just like get decked out into it. So whether it's that or NBC,
I want to go to NBC. That's the one I've been like, I don't know why. It's just something about, I want to go have a beer, not at my house, but somewhere. And I think whenever I think about like having a drink and a meal, I always think about NBC at Universal at City Walk for some reason. Just always drawn to that.
It's been on my mind too. And then I've even thought about, again, on the burger realm, I'm really hooked on burgers right now, but I was even thinking about how Universal's Impossible Burger that we had at Richter's that was just like creamy and it really, really hit the spot. I'm all over the place right now, but that was a good question. That was a good question of what was the one thing we're looking most forward to eating when we get back there. Drinking?
Well, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I do that plenty in my house. In fact, I have to monitor myself not to become a sitting alcoholic, but because that's where I'm at. I just mentally psych myself out, and then I'm like, if I'm this concerned about it, chances are probably low I'm not going to become one. But I'm still like, I physically like. But I've just been thinking like, I think about like the gatherings of Universal and the experiences that you have while you're there and you eat and dine. And, you keep seeing people pop up like Disney snacks that they're missing here and there. But I was like, I've really got a craving for Universal right now. I'm like you said, Who Hash. I was thinking about the Tots. I was thinking about NBC. I was thinking about the old fashions from Toothsome, because I was like, I don't have chocolate whiskey at my house or even the bitters to do that with. So, and I am in that mode where I'm feeling bad. Like if it's not something I really need, I don't want to order it through the mail. So I've been very, very cautious about that stuff. So, although unlike you, I do the same with bread. They like froze some bread, but I've also been thinking I'm gonna take this opportunity to learn how to make it. So I've been trying to get the ingredients for it, but yeast is apparently a difficult find at a grocery store. But
yeah, it was there the first time I went to the grocery store, and before all this got like really elevated, and I should have bought some just for practicing, but I chose instead to get just the bread that I needed, and I'd freeze it and, let someone else who's more confident in bread making make their own bread. But one of the things that I definitely like, it's something I can't say like, oh, I'm really excited to go back and finally have it because we haven't had it yet. But when I was looking for stuff we could talk about on this week's show, I didn't realize that Universal had released, like, at the beginning of March, one of their articles listing off all the food that you would find at Dockside when it opened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I was scrolling through, I was like, okay, some of this stuff looks really good. The only thing I was not on board with was that their avocado toast, it's a vegan avocado toast that is, like, using a lot of nut ingredients with it. And to me, I was just like, oh, like, because they want cheese on it, so they're putting cashew cheese on it. And I'm like, I don't have a problem with nuts and nut allergies, but like my wife has a nut allergy and she loves avocado toast. So like right there, that dish is completely out because
That's weird. I don't ever have cheese on my avocado toast. That's a weird addition. I feel like I don't know. Maybe it is normal. I know where I've been has it.
No.
But.
It's not normal. I've been to two places where they've just put, like, it's been sprinkled on top, but not, like, really consistent in cheese. I've seen it. I've seen it once or twice here and there. So I guess it's different for different people and such, and tastes and all that. But, yeah, so We're not talking about it. If we need something to really talk about next week, maybe we'll go through and we'll do one of our classic episodes where we criticize every single description and look of the menu items. But for this week, we've got a lot to talk about, and including giving you that update. Like we said, 10 minutes into the show, finally talk about it. But it's no surprise at this point. The news has been out for a while. Orange County is basically on, it's a bucket of booze.
I looked up the article you said, and now I'm like...
Yeah, maybe that's next week's show. We'll go through that in hopes that we'll be able to have the food soon. But so Orange County, of course, the county that Universal Orlando is in, we are on lockdown until technically April 9th, I believe, is the official date on there. So that's only essential places are open during that period of time. That would not include the theme parks if the theme parks were open anyways. But that kind of brought in the question for Universal and the other theme parks. What are they going to do? Because they said that they would stay closed through March 31st and then reevaluate as was needed. So with Universal, they didn't even make it to March 31st before they decided to reevaluate, and they decided that they would stay closed through April 19th. So at this point in time, no Universal Orlando until at the earliest probably April 20th. Again, anything could change, and they could open up early if all of this just disappears like it's part of the movie Yesterday and everyone forgot who the Beatles were. In this case, I guess everyone would forget about
Are the Beatles the coronavirus?
It's a loose comparison, but I'm saying maybe, who knows? Maybe we all wake up tomorrow and only one person remembers that this is happening in the world and the disease is gone and doesn't exist and everything's just fine. But I don't see that as happening. So chances are Universal Orlando will officially remain closed through April 19th. We're not going to get in the speculation game on this, really, but I'm expecting... I still have that gut feeling that this is all going to be closed through the end of May. But
yeah, through the end of May.
Okay. Definitely through the end of April. I think through the end of May.
I think we're in a situation right now, and not to get into it too much, like you said, but where... it's great that these theme parks like Universal took these measures, and what I really love about Universal is they're very communicative about it and pretty early on that bandwagon, and they have a Facebook group for annual pass holders too, where they share a lot of that information. But Florida being in the 2-week lockdown. Like, you got to think about these theme parks as being a place where everybody comes to. So, like, if other places haven't shut down yet, this seems like a scary thing where I feel like we're waiting for everybody else to really isolate themselves now so that we can all get back to it. Like we've said before, the sooner we all just, everybody, we can all come to an agreement on something and just hunker down, then the sooner we can get back to start opening stuff up slowly and safely,
Yep. So we'll just have to still wait and see when it's going to be. But I'm sure everyone else has different opinions on it, and we are all valid in the way we're thinking right now. And that's my opinion doesn't mean any more than anyone else's. I am not an expert in any of this. I'm telling what my gut feeling is on this entire situation. Just something has been sitting in me that's saying May, in the end of May. But who knows? I'm also not, breaking out my tarot cards and getting my crystal ball out and going up to Casadega and getting told
you haven't
when
gotten
this is
there
all
yet?
Happening. No, not yet. So
some of us crack so much earlier in this, so...
Yeah, well, it's where do you store your tarot cards? I don't have a good place for mine, so I don't know where they're at even.
Back pocket, ready to go. Lay that out for you. The cards.
See, this would be a perfect time for Miss Cleo to come back, so we could call her to get our free psychic read, and we could know what's going to happen with any of this. Oh, really?
I thought maybe she didn't. Maybe she's still around.
If she did, I feel terrible. But I just assumed that times have changed and the need for TV psychics was going downhill. So why
Maybe we need them out now more than ever. Craig, she did pass. She passed 4 years ago.
Oh.
Well, you're still in our hearts, Miss Cleo. Still in our hearts.
Yeah. Well, with that, why don't we get onto those questions that I mentioned at the top of the show and start answering some of those? And I felt like I had to choose the correct question that we kind of, as the correct question is the first question that we would talk about today. And we kind of already discussed it a little bit last week, I want to say. So it's not going to spend a ton of time on it. But Mac Clark asked, will Universal announce any HHN houses while their domestic resorts are temporarily closed? I think that is going to turn into a situation of as soon as they get a better idea of when they will actually be able to reopen, then they will start thinking about making those announcements because, someone does have to think about worst case scenarios and say like, okay, well, down the road in, when September, when Halloween Horror Nights is supposed to start, if we're still under these
September.
issues, then Halloween Horror Nights starts in September.
I thought it was like even earlier this year. Is it just the first week of September? Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're not crazy like
mixed
Disney.
up. Sorry.
I would be okay if they were. If they would want to start in August, I would be more than happy with that. But
oh yeah, I know. I wish maybe it was wishful thinking on my part.
I think a little wishful thinking on your part, but. Yeah, I don't, once they get a grasp on when they're going to be able to reopen, I think that's when announcements like that are going to be made. Announcements about the official debut of the Bourne Stuntacular, when they'll start accepting guests at Dockside and in suites. I think all of that will start to roll out once they actually have a firm grip on when things are going to go back to normal. However, that being said, I think with the idea that the event's still going to happen and that they can still get people hyped up and keep booking those vacation packages right now when they really need people to keep planning on coming down. I think right now, if they have some of those ideas and concepts in place for like the original houses, it would be a really good time to maybe drop one of those.
Yeah.
So I can understand holding back on the movies because right now, with the rights to some of these movies, especially, they usually like to announce a movie kind of towards the beginning that is something that is relevant to this year. And with now the entire question of what's happening with the movie industry because of all of this and affecting box office and stuff, if it's a movie that is not owned directly by Universal, it might be a lot more of a negotiation now getting that final secured rights in for the product, even though they might have already started working on the concept and pitches and ideas for the houses. This might have screwed up some negotiations for stuff like that. But whereas the original ideas, we did our interview with well, I don't remember. Did we do ours with Patrick Brayard for our HHN interview?
I don't remember his name.
I think it was with Patrick. We did it.
I remember the interview. I just can't remember.
Yeah. I wanna say it was Patrick, but I don't have it sitting in front of me, so I can't even look. But they with the originals, it's sometimes it's creeping in the back of their mind for years that they want to bring back this original or one that gets passed over that year and might resurface again. So. I don't know how far along they're in the process with some of these. We know they usually get started for this year's event. They would have got started before even last year's event really kicked off and got into full swing. So I think that it would be nice to even get like an original house concept put out there if the event's canceled for some reason and they're not using any of it. At least you don't have to get people too excited for something that might not have ever happened, like with a movie or a TV show, perhaps, but with an original concept. At least it whets the appetite.
Well, there's the scary idea too, where we think about Halloween being so far away in the latter half of the year, and hopefully life would be back to normal by then. But it's like, give or take a couple days, it's April. So April, May, June, July, August, like that's it. And that's kind of one of those things where you're like, it's not. But the crazy thing about Halloween Horror Nights too is I know that what we learned from our interview and stuff like that is that planning really starts as soon as everything's was locked in for 29. They started planning for 30. So 30 was, that stuff has started to happen, I'm sure, and go. But it's one of those things where I'm curious to see. This is my little light at the end of the tunnel thing that I'm hoping for with Universal. So I'm hoping the event doesn't get canceled. Understandably so, if that were like a worst case scenario or something like that. But I think that they're going to be pretty aggressive about trying to make it happen. So I just get nervous,
Oh, I completely understand. But just to put into context for last year, the first house announcement was on March 27th, and that was the Stranger Things house.
Oh, okay. So we're not
March
even
27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're like right around that time then. So it's
Yeah, and April 12th was Nightingale's Blood Pit, and then April 29th was Universal Monsters. So just to give you an idea on it, and I have no doubt, just, I know that while Universal might be shut down, but talks are still happening, meetings are still happening, I have no doubt that everyone is... with Universal Creative and stuff is still discussing everything happening with Halloween Horror Nights right now. The only thing that would be stopped is actual physical construction and builds and things like that in terms of ideas, concepts, what they can work on. Even stuff like they can take home, like, oh, well, let's listen to sounds and try to come up with ideas for that. Like, all that stuff can still be happening. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about them not having enough time to get Halloween Horror Nights ready. It's more about what is going to be the state of the world during the Halloween season. But following off that question, I will be hers asked, any HHN house speculation or houses you hope make an appearance this year? Ryno, any speculation or hopes?
I don't know. I was trying to think of something new, and they kind of used up to Stranger Things, so we don't have any Stranger Things left. So I was kind of hoping there'd be more of that, but I feel like if they do it, it would be too repetitive. Every year I say it. I want a Gremlins house, and every year, I know it probably won't happen, but I don't know. The only, like, we started to talk about it a little bit before the show, and the only, like, scary movie that's really kind of stuck out of my head recently, I know Blumhouse had Fantasy Island, but how would you even do that, I guess? Or maybe, I guess it could work, but I think about The Invisible Woman, or Invisible Man, excuse me. But then, like, they kind of made that joke during last year for Universal Monsters about how the Invisible Man was in that house, and you're like, ha ha ha. So I don't know, but I could see them maybe exploring that route, since I feel like Universal Monsters was a pretty big success.
Yeah, and so I think it's actually a shoo-in. I don't know how they do the house. I still haven't seen the movie yet. I did not get to it.
Oh my gosh, you did! Oh
happened.
My gosh.
It was only out for like 3 weeks, and I kept, every time I bought a ticket, I just ended up canceling it just for one reason or another. So I didn't see it in theaters, and before I pay the money to watch it on demand at home, I want to make sure that, like, I have, like, maybe even, we're recording this on a Friday, so I want to make sure, like, okay, this weekend, I know that I'm not working at all this weekend, maybe, so I will definitely buy it, so I know I get to watch it in that 48-hour time period that you have.
Oh, yeah, because you have the 2 days. But I'm waiting for the disc, because for me, it's definitely a purchase. And I don't want to tell you to wait for that, because I know you love, the Universal Monsters, and this kind of falls into that realm a little bit. But I enjoyed it, and it is a shame that you couldn't see it in a theater, because it's one of those movies where I don't necessarily think of like it as being like, oh yeah, big movie theater movie, but the sound of this movie is really intriguing. So they could do some cool stuff, but it's not a lot of jump scares either, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, that was the hardest part, is that I the week that it came out, I was busy every single day that week, and it came down to like the very last screening that they had in Dolby. I had a ticket for it, and because if the movie's out in Dolby, then I assume that sound design is very important, and that's how I want to see it. And it got to that last day, and then I had to cancel my ticket for the very last showing. So then it wasn't about not wanting to see the movie. It was a lot harder to get motivated to actually go out and see it when I had other stuff I could do that might have been a better use of my time anyways. But I am really excited to watch it. That's where it gets to the point too. It's already out that I could stream it on demand if I wanted to, but at the same time, if I only have to wait like another 3 weeks and I can get a physical disc of it, I'm gonna go that route too. I mean, listen, if you look closely, well, no, it's out of frame on my shot here if you're watching, but just above, I have Figment there, and then I think it's, I can't remember what movies are above. I think random Disney movies, but the top of that shelf is my Universal Classic Monsters movies, and I do not have the Wolfman, the Benicio del Toro Wolfman on there, but I do have the Tom Cruise Mummy. So
oh my gosh, how do you have that one?
I support all monster movies, and one day I'm randomly. What's that?
I was just going to say, okay, then you definitely need to buy it if you have because at first I was like, oh, maybe you don't like new generation versions of the movies. And I'm like, this is easily their best one they've done for that whole re-envisioned versions, Yeah.
No, one day when I'm walking past a Best Buy $5 bin and I see the Wolfman in there, I will also purchase that. So it's not like I have an aversion to it. I support whatever they want to do if it means I get more, but I'm not going out of my way for it. But I think The Invisible Man is definitely a shoo-in, because produced by Blumhouse, and it was very successful for Universal while it was in theaters, and I have to assume that it's done well enough on home demand streaming. I know that's going a little shaky from a couple articles that I read, but I think that was more speculative than anything else. So maybe it's going okay for them, maybe it isn't. But I'm going to say no on Fantasy Island because that was kind of a bomb all the way around.
Yeah.
And so I think that even if they had a notion in the back of their mind to do one with Fantasy Island, when it bombed, they probably had a plan to say, okay, let's throw this out and do something else. The Purge, there's another Purge movie coming out this year. I know.
What?
So
is there?
Yeah, there is. Yep. And maybe it won't be a house, but potential for another scare zone. With
it's just
Purge,
such an easy one for them to just shoo in,
Yeah. And then one that I know is going to be released on demand. I'm not sure if it hasn't yet, but it was scheduled for a theatrical release and got all screwed up with this. And it got screwed up after some shootings, some of the recent shootings that happened in the past year too. But the other horror movie, The Hunt. Did you
that
hear
did
about
come
that?
out in the theaters? No, that was out in the movie theaters. It can't. Yeah, because Nicole went to see it. She texted me about it, said it was interesting. Yeah, that came out, I want to say, like the week before Invisible Man or something. It was right around that time because it was the big thing where they were saying it was going to come out in the theaters, but it was going to be really short. Basically, you had to see it right away. But it was the movie that everybody had talked about, but nobody had seen or something like that. That was the big thing. But I haven't seen it yet, no, but I'm familiar with it.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that it made it into theaters. I assumed that it got screwed up as well, too, with all of this. But I read a little bit about it because I watched one preview for it and wasn't super interested in it. But, it's a movie basically about people being hunted. And it's very political, so that could be the one thing that would keep it out of Halloween Horror Nights. But at the same time, it's a Blumhouse-produced movie, and Universal. I'm pretty sure Universal distributed it. I could be wrong about that, but since they have the first look on Blumhouse, I would assume that would just be a shoo-in. But at the very least, a relationship with Blumhouse that would make you think that it would definitely be something that could be looked at with it at the very least, if not for a house, but a scare zone. It's where we're in a 20-year or a 2 years, so that means that it's been this year. It will officially have been 2 years since the last Halloween house that we had, which was Halloween 4.
Well, and there's a
Michael
Halloween
Myers.
movie coming out in October.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
potentially,
that's a good one.
yeah. I think definitely something Halloween. Whether it is continuing with Halloween 5, Halloween 6, one of the other Halloween movies, or the finally doing a house on the 2018 Halloween. Like I could see any of those being a possibility.
Well, I've been thinking, because last year was 80s themed, and then it was 80s themed again before that. I bet they tiptoe into the 90s this year.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll finally do a Scream house or something. What was the big horror movies in the 90s? Because also 30 years ago was 1990, right? Oh God, no, was it? Yeah, the math was right. Okay, yeah.
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 Yep, no, that is correct on there. Well, that was the only thing, too, because I Will Be Hers asked, what do you hope makes an appearance? I have never been to an event where they had a dedicated standalone Freddy Krueger house for A Nightmare on Elm Street. I, of course, was there for the year that it was Freddy versus Jason, but I've never seen... I've never seen Freddy Krueger on his own, so I would actually really love because there's always something that they try to pull in that's a classic horror style movie, whether it was The Shining or The Exorcist or Texas
Poltergeist.
Chainsaw Massacre, whatever. I would love Ghostbusters last year, correct? And I would love for it to be a Nightmare on Elm Street. I would also love, I've said it last year, I will say it every year, kind of like you do with Gremlins, I would love a Haunting of Hill House. And
there's another version of that series coming out, right?
There is. There's going to be a part 2. So I was one of the few people out there who was a true fan of Dr. Sleep. So I would love Dr. Sleep represented if possible as well too. There's lots of stuff that I would love.
You actually just said one that do you think there'll be another Ghostbusters house?
Maybe not back to back. We'll move on to the next question. This one's from Christian, and Christian says, "What does the new expansion park look like these days? Just dirt still?" Yep.
Yeah.
Big old,
I think so.
dirt and dreams. That's what I like to say. That's a little bit of dirt, a lot of dreams. So we'll just move on. This next one's not really a question per se, but it was in response to our episode that we released last week of what do we expect when Universal reopens. Ethan was almost a little bit on the gruff side of this, but Ethan said that when Universal reopens, that Ethan expects the pile of garbage and annoying Dora and Diego meet and greet characters to be phased out of Universal Studios Florida when it officially reopens, so they can ditch them for Paw Patrol characters, and later this year would introduce a new Trolls unit replacing Dora in the Superstar Parade. That seems very angry, but I feel like there was not a question in there, but a discussion in there with what they were talking about. So I'm not sure if something like Dora the Explorer is still relevant to kids out there. I feel like it is. I swear I see, especially with the fact that the live action movie came out last year or this past year. I can't remember when. I feel like it still has some importance to it. But with the new Trolls movie coming out, do we think that, between how popular the Trolls meet and greet characters were when they debuted, based with the new movie coming out, do we think we're about to hit Troll fever coming up here soon with Troll editions throughout the park?
I think that was kind of I think that was inevitable, because I feel like people really responded well to that troll that farts the glitter.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and I feel like, well, I guess it depends how well this movie does. That is still... Trolls, I think, is the first movie to have a day of date, like VOD, and I know that people are, cinema exhibitors are incredibly unhappy about it. And I read an article where they were like, we will not forget this, Universal. So this could potentially change or something, but that movie is still supposed to come out in like a week, so I don't know. But I think that's a if the movie's even halfway decent, now that's they'll have the Illumination stuff and Trolls. What is Trolls a part of? Just Sony
What do you
Animation?
No,
who makes that?
Trolls
Who
is
animates that
DreamWorks.
movie?
DreamWorks.
Oh, DreamWorks. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So they've got.
It's all.
I mean,
yeah,
I think so.
It's all theirs to use. So that's why it's in Cinematic Celebration. They could easily add it to the Superstar Parade. They could.
Yeah.
There could be an attraction for it for all they care. So I wouldn't mind it. The first one wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst thing I watched ever.
I still haven't seen it.
It's a good time to watch it right now when you're doing nothing else. It's a good background movie.
Maybe.
Just listen to the music. Yeah. But interesting. So that leads to the next question that kind of bounces off other questions, but Jack Rabbit said, with classic monsters coming to Epic Universe, what happens to Revenge of the Mummy? Will it get rethemed? Will they just keep it? Or will it get replaced?
I mean, I think if it were going to have been rethemed, I think it would have been rethemed had the Tom Cruise Mummy movie been successful. I bet they would have tried to shoe in a retheme over there. But other than that, I don't think it'll become one of the other monsters. I think they'd wait until they get around to a Mummy movie that does well again.
Yeah, and even at that point, I don't know what they do with it. The Mummy, Revenge of the Mummy, kind of lies in this very strange middle ground in the fact that, guests love this attraction. It is not that they don't love other attractions too that have seen their demise, like Jaws and Back to the Future, but this is one where it's, guests do really, really love Revenge of the Mummy, and there is a nostalgia for that entire series of Mummy movies that were made because they weren't half bad and they did well. So there's lots of reasons to keep it around. On top of the fact that Revenge of the Mummy, it's a quotable attraction that people love. Like, and everyone who is a massive Universal fan always talks about Brendan Fraser and his cup of coffee. So between the movies being actually nostalgic successes and the ride being a fan favorite, and also like beyond just normal Universal park goers, then huge Universal fans and pass holders making the ride quotable and such, I feel like to tamper with it unnecessarily would be a big mistake on Universal's part. So I think even with classic monsters coming to Epic Universe, I think it stays where it is unless they have something foolproof that could be take it and replace it. But even then, I feel like it has to be rethemed because it's not just about the Mummy that works. It's that entire ride system. The fact that it starts off and is a dark ride with these highly immersive rooms and then has those fun elements like the backwards launch and the launch up the hill and the sudden stop and the flames above. There's just everything that goes into that ride is a reason why it deserves to be staying around at Universal. It's not as simple as saying like, oh, let's make it the Trolls version of Rock and Roller Coaster. The Trolls are going on a world tour and we got to get you to this Troll concert. Like they can't do something stupid like that.
No. They already have a music themed coaster that they could do that too, but then you'd be like, well, kids can't get on that, so why would they do that? But yeah.
And kids can't. I mean, some kids can get on Revenge of the Mummy, but it's still it's one of those attractions. I feel like if it gets to the point where people don't want to ride it anymore because it's too rough, it feels too dated, they let it go. Like if Universal purposely lets it go downhill because of they want to get rid of it, then I think it'll get to a point where we can let it go. But I think right now it still is just. It is one of the better attractions at Universal Studios Florida. I can't see them just getting rid of it. I mean, granted, yes, again, they did it for They did it with Jaws, but Jaws also was
was breaking down a lot too, right? Yeah, exactly.
It was a nightmare to run Jaws, and it's like the one day I talked about it on the show before. I still laugh about it randomly sometime when we heard over the radio that that a whole bunch of guests got sprayed hydraulic fluid all over them because a hydraulic line snapped on Jaws and was just covering people, so they needed to go out and get clothes for them. Like, just stuff like that happened, and there's no argument that as great as Jaws was, that Diagon Alley is better. Like, it's
It also, like, the Mummy has has a very unique footprint in the park and I mean, like, real estate wise, where it's just in this kind of tucked in area where you're like, well, it's not really hurting anything by being where it is, right? So it's not really in the way. No. So it's kind of like, it's like nestled. It's just in the right spot to keep it going, I guess.
Yeah, the only thing that I think I would like to see go, if Revenge of the Mummy had to go, I would love for them to replace it with the Secret Life of Pets attraction that is going to open in Hollywood when all this blows over, because the images they shared from that, it looks like they knocked it out of the park with it. And Kylie and I just rewatched Secret Life of Pets 2, and I like
the second one better than the first one.
I had a lot of issues with the first one. I did not think the first one was a good movie at all.
I didn't think it was funny.
No, it wasn't. And it didn't have a good flow to it. In the second one, they kept the same style as they did with the first one, but it just felt like they had better episodic tales to tell in it.
It felt like it was like 2 or 3 really solid short films that they found a way to weave to come together in the end for their 3 parts, and then but it made it so much more enjoyable. It felt like it moved a lot faster, and it was funnier. I actually thought the second one was funny.
No, it really was, and heartwarming. Even though I know a lot of people would be heartbroken, it would fit. Like, you have New York sitting there. You don't have a lot of real estate. The Mummy it's tucked in a nice little place, but they could easily convert that into a Secret Life of Pets area and put the attraction in there. So
I'd rather see it go. I know it wouldn't make sense because it's called Toon Lagoon, but I'd rather see it over there because but it's also, how do you put, you'd have to get rid of the stage over there and maybe there'd be enough space for it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would prefer to see it over there too, but I feel like New York, it could have a fit. The only problem is...
It makes sense, yeah.
The architecture of Secret Life of Pets is so much more... it's so much more cartoony than the actual true architecture of the New York area that we have at Universal. So that's the only thing. It would clash, wouldn't fit in seamlessly together. Whereas where it's at in Hollywood, it's like Despicable Me area, and then right up against it also from the same creators you have Secret Life of Pets, so it's this nice flow just from the pictures I've seen, since we haven't been there to see it yet, and hopefully soon after it opens. But that's our questions. We have one final one, I think. We'll do one final one here, and it's a simple one to answer, but Myrna asks, do you think Universal isn't as popular as Disney because they don't allow videos on their rides and people don't get as hyped up for them?
That's an interesting perspective, but I would say no, I don't think that's part of the case. I think that's probably part of the case for some people, though I'm not saying, but I don't think that would sway the the flow of people drastically.
I think it actually, I will agree with points of it. I think that the lack of allowing to film on rides at Universal definitely does hurt their advertising arm. It's people still find a way to put out these videos. It was for like Hagrid's, we were at our media event for it, and they did not want us to film on the ride because of the safety issues and stuff with it. And so it's like, okay, but then the ride opened up the following day, and they were trying to tell people not to film on rides, but they filmed anyways and released it. And so that's where, that's how that happened. So it's like they knew that was going to happen. So Universal could have said to the partners that they trust for like media events and stuff, they could say, okay, we're going to set it up where we provide you guys with a full ride through to put out there, or we're going to let you actually do it on your own during this time only when we have supervision. Like they could set it up like that, but instead it just comes down to then rogue guests who come in and do it themselves. And it's a lot harder with the attractions that do have metal detectors and such, like Rip Ride Rocket and the Incredible Hulk coaster. But like, we have video on our Diz YouTube channel of Rip Ride Rocket from before the metal detectors and stuff. So it's like, there's still ways that video, the video still exists somewhere out there that people could watch if they wanted to get hyped up. And that's true for a lot of the attractions. But I do definitely think that it hurts that, people want to research these rides and they want to relive these rides when they come home. So not having them out there easily accessible definitely it takes away from it. But I don't think that hurts in their popularity.
Well, I also think it does have something to do with, that this generation of like that, FOMO and all that stuff, the fear of missing out, social media, all those things where, it becomes a little more where people are not like, oh, I want to show everyone and make them jealous. I want to do this. And you have less moments like that where you have to live in the moment. So I'm sure that's, you come from Disney and then go there. That's an adjustment. But like you said, I don't know that it's, like I said before, I don't know that it sways, sways a group of people to go one way or another. I think there is a group of people who are like, well, they could be nervous and like, I want to check and see, because people say this or that about it or something. But, I don't know that it would change that much. I don't know if it would, like you said, change the popularity.
Yeah, I think it ultimately, the popularity comes down to the actual properties that you find at Universal. If you can't force people to be into Fast and Furious or The Simpsons or even Harry Potter to an extent. The fans of these, all the properties that Universal uses, I feel like they have their fan groups, but you might not find a person out there who says, I am a Universal fan of all of this. Whereas something like Walt Disney World, Disneyland, I feel like with Disney properties, you're more likely to find a person who says, no, I just love Disney. I love everything they do. Even the worst movie they put out, I still find enjoyment in watching. I just know it's not as good.
Well, it's one of those things that I actually do, it could affect them one way or another, but it is one of those things that I do actually love about Universal is that it's kind of like they'll make whatever movie they want to believe in, they'll make that movie. Whereas I feel like Disney becomes very, like, it has to meet a very specific parameter, and so for me, that can sometimes, artistically, after a while, it can be kind of like, it's like all kind of the same with just slight fluctuations. So you lose a little bit of that artistic edge that I feel like, when it comes to like a film studio, Universal can take that dive a little bit more because they don't have that key thing, and like no studios really do. I guess Blumhouse is really putting the edge down on horror movies in a very specific type of thing. But, like, I think that's a limitation by Disney. You know what I mean? That they can sometimes not tell the truest and best tales through the things that they've put themselves in a corner with. And I'm sure some people are going to hate that I just said that, but it's true. I mean, you're never going to get a rated R Marvel movie, really. I'm still waiting to see, but Universal could have made rated R Marvel movies,
Yeah, I think another aspect too that definitely hurts Universal, but I see it almost because Universal really took the initiative in building with the Wizarding World, building these highly intricate themed lands. I feel like Universal was the first place where I started to see stuff even way back when in 2010, like Universal's building a Harry Potter theme park, and then Diagon Alley gets announced. Universal is building a second Harry Potter theme park. Springfield, before that, Universal's building a Springfield theme park. Universal's building a Nintendo theme park. It's that really with Disney, the only time I had ever heard like Disney's building this theme park, it was with Galaxy's Edge and Star Wars.
Right, yeah.
Disney's building the greatest Star Wars theme park, whereas we know that's not true. If you're a theme park fan, you know these are lands inside theme parks, but the average magazine out there that is writing these articles, they don't know the difference because it's usually someone assigned to write these articles, not actually people who are necessarily passionate. There are those out there who try to set the record straight, like our friend Carly, who we've talked about before and had her on our Walt Disney World show before. Like there are journalists like her who are trying to lead the good fight, where she writes for a magazine that is broadcasted to tons of people who are interested in all forms of travel beyond just theme parks, and she tries to explain that, well, no, these are lands inside parks, not parks themselves. But with Universal, I feel like I see it so often where it's like, come visit the Harry Potter theme park. You have to see that. Visit the Simpsons.
I want to go to the Harry Potter theme park. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like once they get here, they have that mixed perception. And like, well, this isn't a theme park dedicated to just Harry Potter. It's that. So I think that also hurts too, is when people's expectations are not just because of ride-throughs and such like that, just in general reporting and the terminology we use. That hurts Universal's case, because the stuff then that people are excited about, those properties, while people might not lose their minds over the thought of going to Toon Lagoon or the Lost Continent, when it comes to something like Harry Potter that they are excited about, and then when they find out it's not a theme park, it's a small, tiny land on the very back of a theme park, then it kind of ruins that initial expectation for it. If you're the average person, and I know I'm going to get torn apart for saying the average person, but it's.
I think it's also kind of a word of mouth thing, and you got to think that Universal Studios is 20 years younger than Walt Disney World, and then so speaking only of the East Coast of Florida and Orlando, and it's like, so there's only been, I guess there's been a second park there for as long as there's been Animal Kingdom, but it's like Universal has had these different types of finding what it was, and it is in the middle of this like renaissance of like, okay, we've realized where our thing is with Harry Potter, with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and kind of what they did with Springfield and that stuff, cultivating these experiences in this much more, like you said, very detailed way, and really being like, all right, well, we're not going to just do it lightly, we're going to do it for the hardcore fan, because we want those people, and those people are going to spend a lot of money because of that. And I feel like they really set the bar on that more than any other theme park that I've been to, that I could think of just off the top of my head, in terms of being like leaning in very heavily into one specific thing. And I think that now they are gaining this momentum that started, 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, that Harry Potter was definitely the thing that got the ball rolling, and now they're in that moment where they're changing the game and the perception of what they were before there was social media and connectivity the way we've had blow up in just the last 5 to 10 years.
All very good points. All very, very good points, to the extent that I actually don't have anything to add on top of that. So, well said.
Me neither. Thanks.
Very good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for our questions then, and the answers to the questions that we just gave you. And of course, every video I go through all the comments. I don't respond to most of them, but I do read every single one of them. And
you make us drink.
No, I would never say that, but Ryno did. I read through them all, though, so I pull out the questions as I see them come up. So even when we're not asking for questions to do our big question and answer episodes, I can still hold them in case it's something that can spur a discussion, or be like this, where randomly it just kind of finally added up that we had enough questions to do a nice little well-rounded episode on it. So please keep leaving your comments and questions every single week. Again, even if it's not specifically for we have this episode coming up next week that we need your questions for. If it's just a random question you have, I'm going to read it and I'm going to set it aside for when we do one of these. So please keep asking away from it. And of course, if you need any help with planning your next vacation to Universal Orlando, we recommend using the experts at Dreams Unlimited Travel. They are able to help you book your vacation package or just get your park tickets, whatever you need with Universal. They are there for you to assist you in helping you plan the perfect Universal vacation. Of course, their services are free of charge. They work on commission, so when you book through Dreams, that is how they get paid. They do not charge you for their services. So if you need any further assistance, all the people there that book Universal are experts at Universal, and they can definitely help you have the best vacation. So once again, visit the experts over at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com to help you out with that. If you need any extra information, I kind of blended other and extra there. It was like extra. If you have any extra need for information, then you can always head over to disunplug.com, home of our show notes page for this show and all the others on the Dis Unplugged podcast network. You can find links there to social media channels and more. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button if you like this video, leave us comments and questions below, and hit that bell button so you get notified when we have new videos. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever, make sure you're subscribed and leaving us good ratings and reviews. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. We'll be back with you next week for another episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. But until then, remember, this cheese stands alone, and we still haven't changed the name.